Welcome once again to our series on the overlooked and underappreciated details in Skyrim. And it would seem beyond Skyrim, as today we are heading back into the DLCs. This time it is Dragonborn, and we will be exploring the Morrowind claimed island of Solstheim. This island, steeped in history and mystic happenings, is bound to be fraught with secrets to uncover. Remember to subscribe for more of this kind of content, and let's get started. For our first find, I'm going to cheat a little, because we've actually covered this one before in another video, but we can stumble upon this Reichling camp with a structure of some kind embedded in the snow. This structure is also clearly Dwemer, a fact even more obvious when looking inside, but something else you may notice is that this structure looks very boaty, nautical, if you will. But given that we're in the middle of this rather large island, that seems rather odd, doesn't it? Well, this was actually a Dwemer airship, or at the very least, one patched together by some sorcerers in the Mages Guild, which was then subsequently crashed on an expedition to find a barrow of some kind. Though none of this information is found in Skyrim. It comes from Morrowind's Blood Moon DLC, which, if you're unaware, also took place on the island. And the same crashed airship can be found here, along with the captain's journal. You'd think someone would have taken an interest in this thing in the hundreds of years it's been here, but I guess it's only us for now. But of course, we have up next a skeleton. A skeleton, somewhat oddly, next to 3 apothecary satchels. Now call me crazy, but I think this person may have been an apothecary. But it's not the skeleton or its belongings that are so strange here, it's the location. This skeleton is found in a location no one, including the player, would ever have any reason to be. The jagged cliffs next to a waterfall aren't exactly the best place to make camp, and there aren't any kinds of alchemical ingredients or even ore veins to be gathered here. So the only conclusion left to draw is that they fell or were perhaps pushed. Given they still had their belongings, I would assume they either fell or were pushed off by an animal rather than thrown, but we've certainly seen crimes of passion before here, so murder is always an option too. Either way, I think we can all agree that this is one unfortunate soul. But moving on, we have something far more recent, and arguably far more unfortunate. We find a mining camp, and a quite prosperous one at that. We find an abundance of emerald geodes and gold deposits, a dream come true for many an aspiring prospector. But heading into the camp to find the lucky fellow, what we actually find is a very unlucky fellow. We find a man crushed by his own cart of rocks and gold. He hit the big time, and it would seem the big time hit back. But this seems a strange accident to get into, especially for an experienced miner such as this. Well, once again, we have the devil's drink to blame for untimely death in this series. Yes, crushed along with the man, and indeed spread throughout the camp, we find bottles of mead. Perhaps he was simply celebrating too soon. Don't drink in mine. Next up, we're heading to the ashy southern plains to find a bloodbath, albeit a very contained bloodbath. Here we find a collection of skeletons, blood, a body, and a chest. As we approach it, it will become clear what left them here. An ash spawn. Who would have thought? But this is quite interesting to observe. If the ash spawn are smart enough to create lures and traps like these, then perhaps they are becoming more intelligent, much like the Falmer we discussed in previous episodes. However, I think the more likely explanation is that this chest was left here for some other reason, and the ash spawn just see people approach and kill them. If it was an intentionally placed trap, you'd think they'd at least clean up the bodies. But then again, it must have worked despite the bodies being here for at least some of these people. And finally, we have high atop a waterfall, a fittingly mysterious and yet unremarkable find. A chest rests here, containing the typical randomized contents, of course. But next to the chest, we find a plain old sword and helmet. This pretty clearly shows that whoever left these items here did so intentionally. They brought this chest of random things all the way up to this hidden crevice, laid down their arms and armor, and simply left. But why? Were they becoming a monk and getting rid of all their personal possessions? It's impossible to say for sure, but we'll certainly put them to much better use. Oh, and another bonus one this week. If you come to just outside of Hrothmund's barrow and fly high up into the air, you can see these stones placed in the shape of a big pig, which is quite cute. And once again, that is another 5 things you may have missed in your travels throughout Skyrim. Remember to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.